Information impacting communities around Michigan. Join our host, Tyler Kieft, as he talks with community members, business leaders, and professional experts about the stories that impact you. You're watching the Megacast on Civic Center TV.
When the temperatures are chilly, being together warms the soul. Keep the winter fun going. Help protect yourself and those around you by keeping your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
1 in 4 Michigan homes has high levels of radon, a naturally occurring radioactive gas known to cause lung cancer. It doesn't matter where you live or what type of home you have. You won't even know it's there unless you test. So don't wait. Testing is cheap and easy. And if there's a problem, it's simple to fix. Visit michigan.gov/radon to learn more.
We took action. Will you?
WB Parks and the West Bloomfield Diversity Task Force once again invite you to the 2023 Black Expo. Drop by Orchard Mall and tour demos and displays that highlight Black business owners, resources, and careers. Bring your friends and family to shop around local vendors and support their hard work and dedication to their craft. Come on down Saturday, February 25th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Orchard Mall in West Bloomfield. The 2023 Black Expo.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders just like you. Let's begin with what's making headlines today on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. And of course, the top story today going to be about the impending winter storm, the ice storm coming into our local area. And this report based on the article on our website from Mark Torregrossa at MLive. Expected day with a little bit of everything weather-wise as our local area braces for the impact of Winter Storm Olive. Expected to provide snow, ice, sleet, freezing rain, and even more across lower Michigan this afternoon and into Thursday morning in the early parts of tomorrow. Ice storm warnings across our area will go into effect as of 12 noon today, about an hour after our live show concludes this morning, and run through 4 a.m. on Thursday unless otherwise adjusted to end. Prior to that, if the storm is not as significantly impactful as it's expected to be, or worst case scenario, it persists a little bit longer than 4 a.m., that could be adjusted. All of that will be updated as we go along. Counties affected under this warning are St. Clair, Livingston, Macomb, Washtenaw, Allegan, Barry, Eaton, Ingham, Calhoun, Jackson, Van Buren, Kalamazoo, and of course our county here in Oakland as well. The warnings for most include an ice storm warning due to the temperature gaining into the higher 30s for portions of the storm, leading to a mixture of freezing rain and sleet after the initial periods of snow this morning and into the early parts of the afternoon when this warning begins, which will turn to ice as more of this precipitation accumulates and the ground temperatures change as a result of this freezing accumulation, as well as with temperatures dropping throughout the evening as they always do, making your commute this evening much more slippery than normal. Expected ice it has been increasing in the forecast over the last 24 hours, and that could mean significantly slick roads on your commute home today, as well as potential for power outages, both in your office space, on the roads, which could affect, of course, those stoplights along the way, except on major roadways that have that backup power in place, and of course at your home. So you should, if you're not already, be prepared to make those adjustments for power outages both at work and at home, and of course be ready to stop on the roadways today as well. The bulk of the ice is expected to accumulate on our roads just before and throughout the evening rush hour, so be prepared again for frequent stops and to drive with immense caution both on the city and on the highway roads along your way from point A to point Z this evening. It's not going to be an easy drive home, especially as you get later into the afternoon and into the evening on your commute. So when I say caution, I mean extreme caution, as the National Weather Service has even said that travel may be, quote, nearly impossible, end quote, and is strongly discouraged unless absolutely necessary. So if you can skip out of the office a little bit early this afternoon, this evening, it may behoove you to do so, or maybe potentially if it's available to you, you should work from home today and make those adjustments in your schedule if you haven't already. Some workplaces may send you home early because of the impending ice storm. Places may close early as well. So if you need to go, pick up some items along your way home tonight, be prepared. Especially those independent stores may also be closing a little bit early due to this ice storm, or because of power outages that could pop up throughout the local area. On our website, civiccentertv.com, we do have a link on our homepage and in the slider at the top of the page. It's called the slider. You click on that, it'll take you to our ice storm updates page at civiccentertv.com/ice for a bunch of updates and information. The good news behind the storm is that after today's period of icy, snowy, and rainy conditions, temperatures will rise throughout the rest of the weekend. All this will be expected to swiftly melt away over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. That being said, it's still best to proceed with extreme caution today as you're out on the roads, both early on in the afternoon and certainly as you're out on the roads for your evening commute. And don't go out unless you really need to. If you need to go to the grocery store, then go to the grocery store. But if you can go without a few of those items that you are thinking of picking up, if you can live through the night and through tomorrow with what you have in your refrigerator and in your pantry, and on hand for snacks and whatnot at home, it's highly encouraged that you do so. And of course, stay tuned with us here in the greater West Bloomfield area and with your local stations, both regionally and hyper-local stations in your specific area for updates in your town and at your home. You can go to our website on civiccentertv.com. Again, click on the link at the top of our homepage. It says Ice Storm Updates in that little slider page, or just type in civiccentertv.com/ice. And on that page, and for those of you that are watching on our TV, on our streaming broadcasts online, on Facebook as well, you can see that on your screen right now. It's got a video that gives an update on something we've talked about previously on this program, DTE's new power outage map. It's a little more interactive. It gives a little bit more specifics from a bird's eye view before you zoom in, and doesn't necessarily require you to put in any of your local information. Also ways that you can prepare for a power outage. Calvin, if you can go back up a little bit there. These are some of the items you really should have on hand, or things you should prepare in case there is an outage. The biggest one, I would say, particularly for news and updates and information, would be to have a battery-powered radio or television, or at the very least, make sure that your cell phone is fully charged. And if you have unlimited data, that's another way to get all these updates as well. Certainly, you're going to want batteries and flashlights in case the power goes out and you need to see around your home. Candles and matches can also work for that. However, of course, take precautions too, and be very careful with those so you don't create a new problem for yourself with a home fire. And then for food, non-perishable items, bottled water, always going to be helpful, so that you're able to keep yourself fed and keep yourself hydrated in the event that you are going to be stuck in your home for a little while, depending on the severity of this storm. If you do have a cordless phone, that may also be helpful too, in case cell phones do go out or towers are limited. Tower availability is limited to emergency services, and it is suggested in times of emergency like this may become, we don't know for sure at this moment if it's going to be as significant as it's been forecasted on the high end, or if it could just pass through and be a whole big nothing burger, a dud, like many of these other storms have been forecast throughout this season and in the past have been. We don't know yet, and because we don't know yet, it's best to always err on the side of caution during an extended power outage. So, for example, it's going to be an ice storm today. We're expecting a lot of accumulating ice, not just on our roads, but if it's accumulating on the roads, it's going to be on the power lines. It's going to be on those transformers. There's a great possibility that some of this infrastructure could go out for a short period of time until DTE or consumers or other utilities are able to make those adjustments and make those fixes. Usually they do so as swiftly as they possibly can. But if not, we could be seeing power outages for several days with ice accumulating over the power lines and whatnot, and that could knock out power. It could not just knock out power temporarily because of the ice, it could do damage to those lines too. So that's where those several days potentially could come through. And once again, just want to urge you, this is not a surefire thing. I don't know for sure. We can't report for sure right now that this is going to happen, but it's something to anticipate. And again, another reason to read the materials we have on our ice storm page at civiccentertv.com/ice. If we can put that up once again, Calvin, some advice at Calvin, our director at Master Control, for during an ice storm or power outage emergency. Actually, at the bottom of the page, Calvin, you had it up right there. If you can just scroll down to the very bottom of that page, for those that are watching on the TV or the streaming side, if you're on the radio, you can find this on demand this afternoon after our show, civiccentertv.com/megacast. So keep going down, Calvin, to during an extended power outage. And this is another just a list of advice for things that you can collect and steps that you can take in case a power outage tonight potentially turns into an extended power outage due to additional damage. It's basically taking those steps to do exactly what you do for a regular power outage, but extend that out for a few more days and keep yourself prepared for more adjustments in your daily life. Again, we'll have updates as needed throughout the afternoon today and into your evening commute, specifically for the greater West Bloomfield communities, West Bloomfield Township and the Tri-Cities of Keagle Harbor, Orchard Lake Village, and Sylvan Lake. This evening, we encourage you to stay with us. Many of the things that may impact these four communities may impact your community as well, and if that's the case, we'll have those updates for you on our civiccentertv.com/ice page, and we may cut into our regular programming this afternoon as well for updates as needed. Again, civiccentertv.com/ice, and stay with us. In about 10 to 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Rich Pollman from the National Weather Service serving the Detroit Pontiac area for updates on this storm and how they adjust to the changing variables as the storm approaches and certainly as it's going on. In the meantime, also making headlines on our website on civiccentertv.com on our local news page from Haley Harding at the Detroit News. In the wake of last Monday's mass shooting at Michigan State University, many fundraising efforts have arisen to raise funds for victims and their families and to provide resources for grieving Spartans in East Lansing. But with the tragedy comes those who will try to capitalize on people's grief and prey on the generosity of others. Michigan State University is warning consumers about scams involving Spartan Strong branded items and other items of that kind that have the Michigan State branding on them, some of which may not have any affiliation to the Spartan Strong Fund or to Michigan State University. Of course, the Spartan Strong Fund was set up by Michigan State to support victims of last week's horrendous act of violence and provide those resources on campus for those that may be in need of some counseling and other grieving services. In a release, MSU stated, quote, unscrupulous businesses and individuals, unquote, are attempting to sell merchandise with MSU branding and misleading consumers that these are under the same umbrella of support as other Spartan Strong branded products. However, they have no affiliation with MSU and their funds don't go at all, in most of these cases, to the Spartan Strong Fund, nor have they made any specific commitment to make those funds be transferred to this specific fund set up by MSU. So how do you tell the difference? You look for specific vendors with whom MSU is actively working with for these products and to raise funds for the Spartan Strong Fund. Those are listed in this article on our website, civiccentertv.com, on our local news page. Over $250,000 so far has been raised for the Spartan Strong Fund. Directly from this article, quote, people who think they've seen products that are not appropriately licensed can reach out to Michigan State University at licensing@union.msu.edu or by calling 517-355-3434. Those are both listed as well on our website, civiccentertv.com on our local news page under this article. Finally making headlines today on our local news page from the team at the Detroit Free Press. Well, in addition to today's impending ice storm, expect even more delays on 696 in the near future. This weekend, construction will close lanes on westbound I-696 from US 24 or Telegraph to 275. That's from 5 p.m. on Friday through Monday morning. Then a brief period of some regularity on 696, followed by more construction and more traffic adjustments that will need to be made beginning March 10th and throughout the fall. I-696 from 275 to Telegraph will be shifted to the westbound side of 696 with 2 lanes going in each direction. So if you're heading westbound on I-696 during this period of time, you should not plan to take the Orchard Lake Road on-ramp to go west because that will be closed. You're going to want to make adjustments through March 10th and through the fall to get on the 696 out of the West Bloomfield Farmington Hills area. Typically, you would do that off of Orchard Lake Road. You may need to go a little bit west on the side streets in order to do so. All of this is part of a $275 million project aimed at rebuilding the roadway. All these headlines and all the details that you need on them can be found on our website, civiccentertv.com, on our local news page, ice storm updates on civiccentertv.com/ice. We have a great show ahead on this Tuesday edition of the Megacast. We'll have more on Winter Storm Olive coming up. In the meantime, right up next after this very short break, we'll introduce you to the Shades of Pink Foundation. Stay tuned. This is the Megacast.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important.
And now the same is true in the face of flu.
Influenza has the power to infect millions.
But it's easy to protect yourself, your family, and your community.
The flu vaccine is safe and effective. And with COVID-19 still around,
It's essential. Together we can face flu season head on.
Visit michigan.gov/flu.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more on our website, civiccentertv.com/Megacast, and find us on demand as well. Joining us now on the program is the president of the Shades of Pink Foundation, Pat Meyers. Mary, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate having you on today's program. First off, can we just take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself and the history of the foundation? And you may have been muted there because I did not hear your initial response. So I'll give you a moment. Again, it's Pat Meyers from the Shades of Pink Foundation at shadesofpinkfoundation.org. Mary, Pat, do we have you with us?
Well, I'm unmuted. Oh, you hear me
now?
Okay.
Yes, so now we can hear you. Go ahead and just give us a little bit of information on the history and the mission of the Shades of Pink Foundation.
Yes, a little bit about me. I grew up in Ypsilanti. I have 5 siblings. I practice law, and I have been doing that for the last 40 years in personal injury. I am presently working with my husband here at Meyers Law. I became president of Shades of Pink in April of 2021 because I was just so drawn to the mission and to the cause. And I know we are all touched by breast cancer, whether it be personally, family, a colleague or a friend. So Shades of Pink Foundation was formed in 2005 by Dr. Benitez, a breast surgeon, and Susan Krieger. And they had indicated that they could not find resources for their patients who are undergoing breast cancer treatment. So established the foundation. And since 2005, what Shades of Pink's mission has been is to provide prompt funding, financial funding, to help reduce the stress of a breast cancer diagnosis. Our mission actually is to reduce financial stress for those in Southeast Michigan undergoing breast cancer treatment by providing prompt funding for daily living expenses. So I can explain more if you want me to.
Yeah, elaborate a little bit on some of these services that are provided or are aided by some of the funding that you're able to provide to these individuals and these families who are affected by breast cancer.
Yes. First of all, persons diagnosed with breast cancer, the journey is not the same for every patient. It could be different, for the person standing next to you. And so what Shades of Pink Foundation provides is funding for everyday living expenses, such as a mortgage payment or a rent payment, transportation, lease payment, car payment, or just the cost of transportation, which I think is grossly underappreciated, given the extent of treatments that breast cancer patients go through. Utilities, childcare, insurance premiums. What we have found, and especially in this COVID era, is that many women, and breast cancer affects mostly women, either lost their jobs or lost their insurance. And with children at home during the COVID time, childcare became a bigger issue. What we found during that COVID era also is screenings were delayed, treatment was delayed, surgery was delayed. And so now what we're seeing are patients being diagnosed at a later stage in their cancer, which also increases the cost and puts that financial burden, on the patient.
And all of this is really done in part with partnership from individuals and others in the community to raise these funds and to provide these services to these families and these individuals affected by breast cancer, both during their treatment and even after. It still affects them for years, and the financial toll, as you mentioned, of a bout with breast cancer and multiple bouts with breast cancer can be quite significant. And that's why you have events like your upcoming A Walk at the Zoo. Tell us about that event and how people can participate and really help a lot of these individuals that you're serving in the near future.
Yes, the Shades of Pink Walk at the Zoo is in its 18th year. And the purpose of the walk, I see it as twofold, actually. One is just to bring awareness to the fact that, women with a breast cancer, the breast cancer diagnosis in itself carries one of the highest out-of-pocket costs of any of the cancers. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but there are studies that there are unique situations to breast cancer that just increases those out-of-pocket costs, even if a patient has insurance. So the walk is twofold. One is bring awareness to the need, and two is to raise funds. It is our signature event. This year it's April 29th, and it's from 7 o'clock in the morning until 12 noon. And you can register online at shadesofpinkfoundation.org, and you click on events, and you'll see a walk at the zoo. You register online. You can register individually or as a team. And then there's competitions between teams to raise the most money. And last year we had over 1,100 walkers. So this year our goal, our board has set high expectations this year. We hope to reach at least a higher goal than 1,100. And raise more funds this year so we can continue to help those in need in the community. And the money does stay right here in Southeast Michigan, our 9 counties.
And what's great too about this organization and having a fundraiser like that be able to bring in so much funds is, especially right now, that can really lead to a surge in being able to provide these services to even more people and an even greater extent, because I understand you just received a pretty big grant as well.
Yes, we're very excited and very grateful. The A.A. Van Elslander Family Foundation granted us $100,000 to jumpstart our 2023 fundraising year. And that grant alone will help us serve an additional 49 new applicants. So we're absolutely thrilled in the confidence they have given in donating that to us. And we hope that will encourage others to give as well. Because again, like I said, our board has set high expectations this year, and we expect to meet new goals this year. And this grant from the Van Alslander Foundation has really just started our year off great, and will just benefit so many more.
You can find more information on shadesofpinkfoundation.org. Mary Pat, another minute or so with you today before we need to move on. Anything else we haven't discussed about Shades of Pink Foundation you'd like our audience to know at this time?
No, I think you asked really great questions. Maybe there are a couple of things. One, we're always looking for volunteers. And so if people want to volunteer, they can either go through the Share Detroit site that we have. We did find one of our new board members through Share Detroit, which was wonderful. And they can email the executive director of Shades of Pink at executivedirector@shadesofpinkfoundation.org. And then donations also can be made online. But one thing we really want to do is help get the word out to those people in need. And so the word needs to get out to the social workers and nurse navigators at the oncology offices and hospitals that help identify patients in need. So
again, more information can be found on shadesofpinkfoundation.org. You can also find them on Share Detroit's website under the Find a Nonprofit section at sharedetroit.org as well. Mary Pat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. Again, you can find more information on sharedetroit.org or shadesofpinkfoundation.org as well. Always great to take a little break from some of the things making news each and every day, often which are quite negative in nature, and learn about some of the people and the organizations doing great things here in our local community. Unfortunately, we do have to go right back to something that's a little bit scary and a little bit of a frustration for those here in our community. Certainly will be all afternoon and evening, and as far forward as 4 a.m. on Thursday as we deal with Winter Storm Olive and an expected ice storm throughout our local area here in Oakland County, where we originate our broadcast and more. And we are pleased to be joined once again on today's program by Rich Pollman, the warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service's Detroit Pontiac office out of White Lake. Do we have him available at this moment to bring in? Okay, so we'll have him here in just a moment. He is with us. We're just about prepared with him, so stay tuned. We'll take a break for about 30 seconds to a minute and come right back and talk about this. We'll go into more detail about what you can expect this afternoon and what your local weather authorities are doing in order to keep you informed about what's going on and give updates for emergency services should they be needed. In today's events, an expected ice storm this afternoon as part of Winter Storm Olive. We'll have details on that coming up next on the Megacast.
It's that time of year, Greater West Bloomfield. Our towns gather together this March for the 5th annual State of the Communities. Important figures from Sylvan Lake, West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, and Kego Harbor discuss the past year's projects and developments. Hear presentations from speakers, discussions on plans of action, and more. The 5th annual State of the Communities, March 13th at 7 p.m. at the new West Bloomfield Middle School.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can stay up to date with us on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Find all of our full shows and each segment on demand on that page and learn more about all of our partnering stations, including those in your hometown, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. You can also find updates today on the impending Winter Storm Olive here in our local area, which will include an ice storm and very icy and slick conditions on our website as well, civiccentertv.com/ice, with updates throughout the afternoon and the evening. Joining us now from the National Weather Service's office out of White Lake is Rich Pollman, the warning coordination meteorologist. Rich, thanks for being with us again on short notice to talk about this impending storm.
No problem. Happy to help out.
Yeah, glad to have you with us. This has been something that it's not sudden. It's something we've expected to be impending here in our local area from late last week and over the weekend up to now, and we're expecting it to begin really in full force this afternoon. So as we've been anticipating this storm coming in, how has it changed and where does it stand as of the time that we're doing this live at about 10:30 on Wednesday morning?
Yeah, the forecast is pretty much on pace to have the storm evolve and hit Oakland County, Metro Detroit as we anticipated. We're early this afternoon, we'll have a little bit of a mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. It'll be fairly light, but once we get to 3 o'clock, that's when the main part of the storm will be hitting. It'll be all freezing rain for most of Oakland County and most of Metro Detroit. So from 3 to about 10 o'clock is when the peak of this event is. And again, it's all going to be freezing rain pretty much. You get a little bit closer to the northern parts of Macomb and Oakland counties, might see a little snow or sleet mixed in with it. But again, the predominant precipitation type is going to be freezing rain. And the big issue with freezing rain is, of course, you just need a little bit of that to freeze to the roads to become a hazard for folks that are driving. And then the more ice that we get, more freezing rain that we get, the more weight it adds to our trees, our tree limbs, and power lines. And that's when it becomes very much a danger out there, whether it's falling limbs, falling trees, or potentially some significant power outages.
Yeah, at this time, weather.com forecasting snow accumulations of upwards to 2 inches, ice accumulations anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. And I saw on social media, on Twitter, from meteorologist Mike Taylor at WXYZ TV out of Detroit. The last time Detroit had an ice storm with at that sort of level was April 3rd or 4th in 2003, when there was 1/4 inch to 1 inch of ice reported that left 400,000 without power and did over $50 million in damage. Of course, as you mentioned, Rich, the big caution here that we should be taking is particularly on the roads, because this is going to be in the evening commute. And as this freezing rain comes in, given the temperatures have been a little bit warmer as of late, does that spring positive for us on just how much of this ice may end up accumulating on our roadways and other areas because it's been a bit more warmer than usual this season?
Yeah, that's one of the variables that we're trying to hone in on to figure out what exactly is going to be the impact. With this freezing rain event, there are so many little variables that can sway things one way or another. The fact that some of the freezing rain happens during the daytime, even though the sun's not out, it's daylight, and that does help warm things a little bit. So will that amount of daylight actually help out the roads and some of the trees for the initial batch of freezing rain? It probably will. The difference between how much ice can accumulate with 32 degrees versus 30 degrees is a tremendous difference. So every degree that you're below freezing will affect how much ice actually accumulates on our trees and our roads. And then another factor is just the amount of rainfall. The rain is actually going to be so heavy that the effectiveness of freezing won't be as much as it could be, because it's raining so much that a lot of that water is actually going to run off and not freeze. There's just not enough time, enough cold air to freeze all the water that's going to be falling out of the sky. So all of this leads into some of the difficult forecasts to try to hone in on what those impacts are exactly going to be. And again, the warm temperatures that we've had recently are also going to figure into that. Current roadway temperatures are in the mid-30s for Wayne County, but from M59 on north, current roadway temperatures might be 32 or 33 degrees. So the further north you are, the more likely you're going to have ice accumulate on the roads a little bit quicker. And of course, there's mitigating factors. The road crews are going to be out there trying to keep everyone safe and apply the salt. And a little bit of salt is going to do a lot of wonders on the road surfaces. So we'll And all of that is going to go into figuring out what the overall impacts are, and we'll kind of be able to assess that as we go through the evening and then certainly tomorrow morning.
And part of what you do at the National Weather Service office in the Pontiac, Detroit area out of White Lake is to make those adjustments in the warnings as time goes on, as you learn this information. So for a storm like this, what is the team at the National Weather Service in our local area doing in order to learn that information and then adjust their forecast and adjust their warnings given what they're learning from the storm as it's approaching our area and certainly as it gets into our area and starts having its effect?
Yeah. So again, it's all about the details. So the overall 30,000 foot layer, we're probably going to have that ice storm warning in effect for this entire event. And there probably won't be much change to that. But the way that we message that ice storm warning and issue statements and updates through social media and through traditional wire services, those types of weather messages might get honed in a little bit different as we learn. And some of that's just going to be looking at the current observations, whether it's radar data, the temperature and dew point at each observation point across Southeast Michigan, and what sort of air mass is trying to come into Southeast Michigan. We have competing air masses where we have the warm, very moist air from the south, but we also have a cold, dry air mass from Southwest Ontario undercutting that warm, moist air. That's what's leading to our freezing and rain event, and that affects the lowest 1,000 feet of the atmosphere to give us the different types of precipitation and how effective the ice accumulation can be on the trees and power lines. And so we'll be looking at that. Another key component is just going to be getting all the reports in, whether it's from traditional media, our spotters, just the public at large, farming through the social media, trying to get an idea of what are the impacts as we go through every hour of this event, as we go through all those reports of what is happening out there. And so we'll use all of that to assess what's going on and then be able to change our message if we need to the public and to the media.
Weather.gov/DTX for more information in our Detroit area on Winter Storm Olive and other information on our weather each and every day. You can also just go to their website at weather.gov, and at the top left you can put in your local zip code, whether you're in Oakland County or other surrounding areas watching us or listening to us today, to find weather updates in your local area specifically, as well as warning information as it's adjusted through the day. And Rich, a couple more minutes with you here before we'll let you move on for the day. We know you're very busy and appreciate you joining us. In terms of communication with emergency services and with the utilities, how much of that goes on too with the National Weather Service when you're in an emergency weather situation such as this?
So we have a strong partnership with our government agencies. So we work with emergency management and Homeland Security departments. And we also provide a lot of information to our MDOT and road commissions, and even down to the municipal Department of Public Works and people that would be working on infrastructure and roads and making sure that they can manage the weather event that we have here. With the utilities themselves, since we're a government agency, we work with our government agencies very strongly. There is a little bit of work with the utilities. They certainly get all of our information, and they will use that information in the decisions that they make. And so they do have that information available to them. And it may not be the direct one-to-one relationship that we have with our government partners, but we certainly look to work with anybody that's going to help mitigate the effects of this ice storm.
Well, Rich, we appreciate you joining us to give us some of these updates and that insider information on what is happening right now at the Detroit Pontiac office of the National Weather Service located out of White Lake, and how your team is helping to keep us informed and help us stay safe during this ice storm today. Thank you so much for joining us on short notice.
Oh, you're welcome. Stay safe out there. Yep.
You as well, Rich. Weather.gov for more information. Weather.gov, put in your zip code information at the top left of the screen for up-to-date information. You can also stay with us on civiccentertv.com/ice for updates throughout the afternoon and the evening as needed from the greater West Bloomfield area. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, there's been plenty that's been going on lately affecting politics here in Michigan and across the U.S. Here to join us next will be Dave Dulio from Oakland University. Stay tuned. You're listening and watching to the Megacast.
Many people are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with mental wellness these days. So be kind to your mind. Give yourself permission to breathe. Share your feelings. You are not alone. Have hope. Talk to a Stay Well counselor for free confidential help 24/7 through the COVID-19 hotline.
Ronnie started doing prescription pills at the age of 15, and by 19, he died. If your child is struggling with drug use, try not to be too proud to reach out for help. Don't be worried about what the neighbor will think or your family. Just get your child the help they need. Sometimes it's the hard road to take, but the hard road is nothing compared to living with the fact that your child is no longer with you.
There's hope and help at drugfree.org.
Watch Civic Center TV with our brand new live captions. To turn on live captions, go to civiccentertv.com and click Watch Live. In your web browser, click on the Options tab in the top right and find the Accessibilities tab. Then just switch on live captions to heighten your enjoyment of our local programming. Thank you so much for watching Civic Center TV.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. You can learn more information on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations across the Great Lakes state, including our co-flagship, My Michigan TV, and find each full episode and individual interview segment on demand as well. And watch us on your time, anytime, civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now on the program from Oakland University as a professor of political science and the director of their Center for Civic Engagement, Dave Dulio. Dave, thanks for being with us today. Glad to have you on. It does appear that you are muted to us.
Sorry about that.
That's
You'd
all right.
think we'd be used to it by now, right?
Hey, you know what? It happens to the best of us. It happens on our side, too. So, no, we're not perfect either. Technical difficulties are just the way of the world in this day and age. But Dave, let's get into the politics where there's been plenty of technical difficulties on their part in the past, but now a lot of really important stuff that's happening, particularly in the legislature in the state of Michigan, especially in the wake of last week Monday's mass shooting at Michigan State University. Calls for action, of course, in the cases of mass shootings and in the aftermath of those is always right away and quite frequent and fervent from the community. How so far has that affected our legislature? What sort of action has been taken in the weeks since the shooting at Michigan State?
Yeah, I think the biggest development is the introduction of some legislation, or maybe it's even a reintroduction of some legislation to close some loopholes on background checks, or proponents of the legislation would say that they're closing loopholes in the background check process by requiring it for shotguns and rifles in certain circumstances where it isn't now. I think this is the first of several attempts to tighten gun laws here in Michigan, and with Democrats in charge of all the levers of government, you would think the chances of them passing and being adopted is pretty high. Although I think there are some Democrats in rural areas that are going to face a bit more opposition than others. So it's not a slam dunk, especially given that the Democratic Party only has a one-seat majority in both chambers. So it's not a done deal, but I think the odds are strong.
And it's going to be a big issue here in the state of Michigan, of course, because this is two mass shootings at different schools in Michigan, a high school at Oxford, just a little bit a little bit under 15 months ago, and now Michigan State a little bit over a week ago at this time. And so we're in the year of 2023, 2024, right around the corner. This is going to be a hot button issue here in the state of Michigan, especially as the Democrats that are in leadership in Lansing are taking action on it, or attempting to take action on that. How much of an impact is this issue going to have in Michigan between now and the 2024 election, or at least as it stands at this time? How much of an impact may it have on how people run for office, and certainly those results in 2024?
Sure. I think that the potential impact is on a couple different fronts, and the whatever happens in terms of the votes that are coming on changing the law in Michigan, I think you will see some of those votes become issues in state house races when those campaigns start to really get going next year. If there are measures adopted to, say, tighten gun laws in Michigan, I think what that does is take the issue somewhat off the table. I think you can make a comparison to the abortion issue. Right now that abortion has been codified as a constitutional right in Michigan based on the ballot proposition last year, that issue is no longer one that's going to be hotly debated, at least as hotly debated as it was previously. And I think, if gun laws are tightened, you'll see similar dynamics at work there.
And you would think too that if that is what happens with the Democratic majority, as you mentioned, very slight in both houses, one vote on each side, and a Democratic governor, and they're able to pass these gun laws, that is a high-level priority issue for the Republican Party. Second Amendment rights are a principal part of their party platform, and has been for a number of decades. How may that affect Michigan's political running in the national politics, especially given it is a swing state and it's very important to the Republican Party? They're going to need to make adjustments, especially if that becomes law, and it'll definitely become one of their talking points.
Yeah, I think it very well might. What Republicans need to do to win statewide anymore in Michigan is claw back some of the independent voters, the persuadable voters that are willing to listen to Republican messages and willing to support Republican candidates in the right circumstances. And many of those voters are in places like Oakland County and I would say Kent County as well, right? Those are two really important places to watch moving forward. But what they have to do is talk to those voters in ways that are going to bring them back to the Republican Party. And I think it's going to have to be a really nuanced message on Second Amendment rights if they're going to do that.
And all of this leads back to leadership in the Republican Party, not just at the national level, but also in the state of Michigan, which brings us to this week when Kristina Karamo defeated Matt DePerno to become the new chairperson of the Michigan Republican Party. What sort of an impact may Karamo's leadership have on Michigan's GOP, especially given that she defeated somebody that was endorsed by former President Donald Trump, that being Matt DePerno?
Yeah, it's really something, right? I mean, so Trump endorses DePerno prior to the convention, and then when his candidate loses, he praises Kristina Karamo for her stances on election integrity and election denial from 2020, right? So Trump, he's trying to have it both ways, right? He wanted DePerno, but now he's full-throated support of Kristina Karamo. I think one of the biggest issues that the Republican Party faced in 2022 here in Michigan was a lack of financial resources. And, they just didn't have the funds to compete with Gretchen Whitmer, her campaign, and Democratic allies, as well as the Democratic Party. And I think that based on the reaction that a number of sort of traditional Republicans, conservative voices in Michigan, based on what they've been saying in the last week or so, I think they're going to have trouble, maybe even more trouble, raising money to be competitive in 2024. I mean, you don't take my word for it. Look at the comments by Nolan Finley in an editorial earlier this week, right, about how the Republican Party is dead in Michigan, and there have been others that have made similar statements. And granted, they're not from the Karamo or DePerno wing of the party, but they've got important cases to make.
We're joined by Dave Dulio on today's edition of the Megacast, professor of political science at Oakland University, where he's also the director of the Center for Civic Engagement. You can keep engaged with the CCE on their website, oakland.edu/CCE, for more information. On a national political side, in recent weeks, a lot of controversy with some of our political adversaries across the ocean in China, with the Chinese spy balloon and with other various aircraft and other objects that have been shot down across the U.S. And, of course, with Vladimir Putin and Russia, with this being the one-year anniversary this week of the invasion of Ukraine, as well as President Biden's surprise visit to Kyiv earlier this week. Let's begin with China and the spy balloon and the aftermath of that. How is that affecting relations that were already kind of rocky between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party?
Certainly not helping. I think that the reaction to the spy balloon probably has changed behavior more within the U.S. than outside, and I say that because the president received a good bit of criticism for allowing this balloon to traverse the United States, right, from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast by the time it's shot down. And I think that we would be fooling ourselves if we didn't say that the other objects, I think we can call them, that were shot down, including one over Lake Huron, in the wake of that were anything but a reaction to the fact that there was heavy criticism of letting some foreign object, unidentified object, the balloon was identified as Chinese, right? But they shoot down these other things, and it doesn't look like we're ever going to know what they were, because at least the one over Lake Huron is now at the bottom of the lake. So we'll see. But I think that folks in Michigan, I think, are curious as to what that was, and I'm not sure we'll ever know.
And in terms of our relations with Russia, this is, of course, the one-year anniversary this week of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. President Joe Biden made a surprise visit earlier on in the week to Kyiv to visit the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in their capital. And this is something that the reports have shown that the U.S. did inform Russia beforehand, the Russian government, not necessarily directly Vladimir Putin, but someone in the higher ranks of the government, that President Biden was going to make this trip in the hours before he did arrive. But then Vladimir Putin making a speech also just after that really laid into the U.S. and the Western countries of the world for the continued support of Ukraine, and including President Biden's visit.
Yeah, I think there's one way to describe Biden's visit, and that's gutsy. The fact that it's clear that the airspace was not guaranteed to be safe, either by the Ukrainians or anybody else. So I think that he deserves a great deal of credit for taking that on. I think that it is a tough juxtaposition, though, with what's happening in Ohio, in East Palestine, with the train derailment, right? And that's not lost on some Americans, that the president chose on President's Day here in the U.S. to go to Kyiv rather than weigh in on the train derailment. You know, in terms of Putin, I think the bigger happening in that regard is his decision to have Russia not participate in that nuclear treaty that they've been operating under with other countries for years. Whether that really escalates things or ratchets up the tensions, we'd have to talk to an international relations expert, but I can guess their response. But I think that's the more important Russian reaction to recent developments.
We're joined by Dave Dulio from Oakland University's Center for Civic Engagement. He also is a professor of political science at Oakland University as well. More information, oakland.edu/CCE. Dave, before we let you go, anything else that you'd like to discuss that may be going on at the Center for Civic Engagement that we can keep an eye out for or put on our calendars at this time?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tyler. You know, speaking of Ukraine, last Wednesday, we did a session that we call Office Hours, where we highlight experts that we have at OU, and we had some international relations experts talk about the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and that's obviously in the past. But you can watch that panel on our YouTube channel, which is OUCCE on YouTube. Next Thursday, we are going to have another office hours session, this time on the rise of anti-Semitism across the country and in particular on college campuses. And this one's going to be a great session, a special session, because the Oakland University president, Ora Hirsch-Peskovitz, is going to participate, given her expertise at the presidential level. She'll be able to talk about what other institutions are experiencing across the country, and maybe what their responses to those instances are. And we're also going to have a historian on the panel, Derek Hastings, who's an expert in anti-Semitism. That'll be from noon to 1, and you can get more information at our website.
Again, the website, oakland.edu/CCE, and you can find them on YouTube. Just search Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. Dave, thanks as always for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
Oakland.edu/CCE. Keep up to date with all their upcoming events and learn more information about how you can participate in the Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. We encourage you to stay with us on our website at civiccentertv.com for continued local news updates throughout the week, as well as updates on Winter Storm Olive passing through our local area today with an ice storm warning going into effect in a little bit over an hour from the conclusion here in a short minute from our live show this morning. 12 noon today until 4 a.m. on Thursday, that ice storm is in effect. We'll have updates for the greater West Bloomfield area and some surrounding portions of the local area on our website throughout the afternoon as needed at civiccentertv.com/ice. So stay with us this afternoon for more updates, and of course stay safe out there. Get updates from your local outlets, including our National Weather Service office out of Pontiac, Detroit at weather.gov. You can put in your zip code and get information immediately in your local area. We also have links on our page on civiccentertv.com/ice to the DTE outage map, which you can find more information specifically about your hometown and your area and power outages that may accumulate throughout the afternoon. That's our Wednesday show for the Megacast. Stay tuned with us throughout the afternoon, and we'll return with a new show very soon.